Welcome, high school hockey fans. It is state tournament time. And this week in Wisconsin, Prep Hockey is going to take a look at the state tournament before it all gets started. Joining me is my usual cast of knuckleheads, Bill Sr., Bill Jr., Trasher, and Dell. And before we get to the state tournament stuff, what we'll do is we will have our players of the playoffs and kind of like the players of the week, but the people who put in some phenomenal performances in the playoffs, and there was a lot of them. But we got a couple of winners here. One boy, one girl, and Burglar. Go ahead and let us know who it is. He will once he unmutes himself.
I can do that because somebody wrote it up and stuck it here in front of me. Our Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg, players of the playoffs. The Wyndham Garden Inn, as we have mentioned every week, is the official state tournament headquarters of Wisconsin Prep Hockey, and we will be invading their space on Wednesday evening and not leaving until sometime Saturday. On the boys' side, our player of the playoffs is one Cole Fensky, a forward from Rice Lake. In the regional final, he had a goal in a 3-1 win over New Richmond. In the sectional semifinal, he had both goals in a 2-0 win over Amory. And in the sectional final, he had 2 goals and 2 assists in their big win over top-seeded Hayward. So Cole Fensky, a forward from Rice Lake, is our boys' player of the playoffs. And on the girls' side, on the schedule, she only played in 1 game, but it was actually a lot longer than 1 game. Abigail Severson, goalie from Viroqua, played in the regional final. Viroqua lost 2-1 to Black River Falls in how many overtimes?
6 overtimes, Burglar.
6 overtimes. Total of 108 saves out of 110 shots in what ended up being the equivalent of over 2 games. That was played all in like 1 game time frame. 98.2% save percentage for that. Abigail Severson, goalie from Viroqua, our girls' Wyndham Garden Inn of Fitchburg, player of the playoffs.
They'll be talking about her for a long time, that performance. All right, well, let's go and start taking a look at the brackets, what we got set up for the state tournament. Let's start in the D2 bracket. In the boys, Fond du Lac Springs and Rice Lake, and Pines and Somerset. And who would like to start off with this one?
I got you, MJ. All right, I did some digging looking at the last 10 years of the state tournament. In those 10 years, obviously 8 teams, the previous seasons 8 teams were available for the tournament. Of those 80 slots, 14 were taken by teams that are currently in Division II. Their record in those 10 state tournaments is 5-13. And that's got to be a big part of the reason why we have 2-division hockey. Small schools are not going to have as big a player pool to draw from, so they're not going to have teams that are as deep as those in the larger schools. The only team in those 10 years that has won more than 1 game in D2 at the state tournament is Superior. They went 1-1 in 2013. Obviously, they won the whole thing in 2015. None of the D2 schools that have qualified for the state tournament since then has won a game. Anago, West Salem twice, and Springs. So that's why we have 2-division hockey like all of the other sports now. So just want to get that out there. First game, Rice Lake taking on St. Mary's Springs. This is a game where, fools would look at, Rice Lake as being the 4 seed in their section. They beat, I forgot who their first opponent was, but then they beat top-seeded Amory and second-seeded Hayward. The first game was against 5th seed New Richmond. And you look at them, and they come in and they face Fondy Springs, and a fool will tell you that, they're going to face a team unlike any they've played before, but that's absolutely not true for Rice Lake because they play in the Big Rivers Conference. So they played 2 games against Hudson, and 2 games against Eau Claire Memorial, and 2 games against Chippewa Falls, and 2 games against Eau Claire North. They didn't have a lot of success in those games, but Fondy Springs is absolutely not a team like one they haven't seen before. They've got a lot of experience playing tough games. Looking at the strength of schedule from the computer rankings from all the D2 teams, the top strength of schedule in D2 was Superior, as it generally is. Second was St. Mary's Springs. And third, fourth, and fifth were the 3 Division II teams that are in the Big Rivers Conference. That's just a brutal schedule, and I think it prepared Rice Lake quite nicely for their playing in Section 1 and D2. They were the only Big Rivers team in that section. The other 2 were down in Section 3, and they handled their business. They did really well coming in. On the other hand, those games they played against those D2 schools in the Big Rivers did not go their way, and many of them were not particularly close. So we could be looking at a game between Springs and Rice Lake where we're looking at a running time, game in the state tournament. On the other hand, Rice Lake is not going to be afraid of Springs coming in like so many teams are that first time they get down to Madison. They're as battle tested as a high school hockey team can be. That's just a brutal schedule they played through all year, and their goalies and their defense have really stepped up in the playoffs. Their save percentage has gone from around 89 to 95 in the playoffs, so it'll be nice to see that. But they're going to have to find a way to stop Brady Welsh, Joe Pavelski Award finalist, Noah Pickert, Davis Drewiski Award finalist, and then you got the freshman goalie for Springs who's playing just about as well as anybody in the state. Obviously, they have not allowed a goal so far in the playoffs, so they've got that going for them. On the other side of the bracket, you've got Somerset and Northland Pines. Interesting fact, since we just talked about the Big Rivers so much in Rice Lake, Somerset had to beat the other 2 Division II Big Rivers teams to get to the state tournament. They beat both River Falls and Menominee. Both those were 3-2 games. One of them was overtime. So they've had a nice little run here. They've also picked up their defensive and goalie play, another 6 or so percentage points on their save percentage versus what they had in the regular season. And Northland Pines, as great as they've been all year, they have gotten first place votes in our top 6 voting. They've never actually cracked first place, but they've gotten votes. They've dropped a couple stinkers on the ice this year. Trasher and I were at their game against Stevens Point, and while they looked good on offense, they looked outright bad on defense. I don't think they covered a Spash player in front of the net the entire game. Their game against Mosinee, they beat Mosinee 9-0 and 6-0 going to that sectional final. And if it wasn't for a boarding call in the third period, they might be going back to Eagle River with nothing. So there's some inconsistencies in their play that they need to work out. If they come out in the state tournament and they look ahead to the expected matchup with St. Mary's Springs, Somerset could jump on them. Bodie Smith, their top defenseman, is also their top scorer. He could put a couple goals in. Somerset could get him. It's just if Pines is looking ahead, or they drop one of those games where they just don't have it out on the ice.
That's an interesting synopsis on Northland Pines because, we've seen them all year, be in that top 6, but yet you guys have had a chance to see a couple stinkers by them, and
and like the game against Spash, it was in their defensive zone was the only place they looked bad. In the offensive zone, they were flying around. They made Spash look very slow offensively. Pines could do whatever they want with the puck, except that night they couldn't put it in the net. It ended up being 6-3 with an empty netter for Spash. But yeah, in this game against Mosinee, in 2 previous games with Mosinee, they scored 15 goals. In this one, they scored 4, and it was 1 through 2 periods until that major power play.
And yeah, I was at that game, and as a grandson Brett was with me, and his knock on Northland Pines offensively was that they kept going. Well, what he calls it, they kept going for the pretty goal. They made some nice passes and tried, setting up, make a couple of passes and set up a guy on the back door. They had like I think in the first couple of periods they had 2 crossbars, and in the third period they had 2 pipes that they hit. But defensively, they gave up some odd man rushes and some breakaways to Mosinee that their goaltender Brett Wilkins bailed them out on some of those and kept it close. And then they finally did put it together. Their power play looked really good. They did put it together during that major and tied it up and then scored to win it right after that. But yeah, we didn't expect that. Mosinee, they had to go to overtime against Rhinelander the game before. So we just kind of expected Pines to have their way. Maybe they expected to have their way with them too. I don't know, but they're going to have to shore up their defense a little bit. They can't count on Wilkins to stop everything that their defense gives up. Just get some dirty goals.
Wilkins, I don't know if they're just overconfident in Brett Wilkins. He was one of our Kirk Dobbins-Beck finalists last year. He's not this year. When we went to that game where they played Spash again in January, he was at, I think, 891 for save percentage on the season. And I'm like, well, what's up with that? Then I watched the game with Spash, and I'm like, oh, they're not giving him any support at all.
I think they even took Gunnar Schiffman, their best defenseman, and made him a forward.
Yeah, early in the season they moved Gunnar Schiffman from defense to forward, and yeah, they're not, at least what we've seen of them, they're not strong in front of their net, and when you get down to Madison, you really should be.
Okay, guys. Anything else?
Junior, on that article that you wrote up for the preview here, the one thing that jumps out at me is I like the way you put the penalty minutes up there. But what did you see with Bodie Smith there? Because I see on here that he has 61 penalty minutes on the season. Is that going to be something that they got to worry about?
I think that happens for a couple of reasons. First off, there's not that many teams in the state where your leading scorer is a defenseman, and I think his ice time is part of why he has so many penalty minutes. And when putting those widgets on the site, for forwards you do points, goals, assists, points per game, that kind of thing. For defensemen, we'd like to put plus minus up, but teams don't track plus minus throughout the season, so we can't put that up. So penalty minutes is always something that's been on the back of, like, if you get a pack of hockey cards, the defenseman's always got PIM on the back. So that's what I use for the defenseman. But he's on the ice a lot. He's got to be on the ice. Of the 51 minutes, 30 of them, if not more. He just piles up the ice time, both ends, and he's a very high energy player, and yeah, that'll get you some penalties. He had 2 penalties in their final against Menominee, and I want to say, I'd have to go look at the score sheet. I believe at least one of Menominee's goals came while Bodie Smith was sitting in the box, which is not where you want your best player to be, because besides being their best player overall, he's probably their best penalty killer.
A couple comments, guys, on Fondy Springs and Rice Lake. The leading scorer for Rice Lake, Cole Fensky, with 21 points, would place 7th on the Fondy Springs team. And in the game that I watched Fondy Springs take care of Waupun, Brady Welsh, definitely the best kid out on the ice, 66 points on the year. Noah Pickard, an all-everything defenseman. He skates with the talent of a figure skater, but he is a hockey player. I mean, this guy is unbelievable on his skates, making moves, different changes of direction that you would have never guessed. Probably 2, 3, 4 times during the game, I was absolutely in awe of what he did to, like, escape a check or to get around a guy or whatever. Fondy Springs is going to be a tough row to hoe for Rice Lake. And then on the other side, Pines and Somerset making their first trip. They got some nice players. Junior, you saw him play, and we also saw Pines play. They had a kind of a clinker against Spash, but I think in this game they're going to be ready to go. In my opinion, Fondy Springs, Northern Pines in a championship game, guys.
Well, I mean, I think you'd kind of have to be crazy not to make that your pick. I wouldn't be, just based on what I've seen this year, you could, the other teams could make a case. But yeah, I mean, you'd have to be crazy for that not to be your pick. And they've been 1-2 in the top 6 all year, and I don't know, like, how many weeks has it been since one of them was voted anything other than 1 or 2? I mean, have they been 1 and 2 all year, and I don't think any of them has
I think they have been.
Have they gotten a third place vote even?
No,
I don't think anybody else has gotten a second place vote. So
No.
I mean,
No,
there's
in
a
fact-
there's a gap there.
In fact, we've even talked that had this still been a single one division state tournament, Springs and Pines would each have been solid contenders to make it out of their section in the old format.
Yes,
Their
I believe
teams are that good.
I believe Springs was in the section with USM and Arrowhead. That would have been a hell of a section with them still in there. Pines, their only real competition. I mean, they already lost to Spash once, but I don't think that would have played into the playoffs. Their only real competition on the other side would have been Wausau West, and we see what happened to them when they played Chippewa Falls.
Were any of you guys surprised about that? That Chippewa Falls just dismantled Wausau West?
Wasn't terribly surprised that they won, but the manner of victory was a bit surprising.
I mean, you guys see Wausau West more than I do, and you guys know the level of schedule they play, and the talent that they have. Just, I think you're right, Junior, about the gap of how much they lost by was just kind of. When was the last time Wausau West lost like that in the playoffs? I mean, probably a long time.
I mean, when was the last time Wausau West was on the short end of running time in the second period? I was at that game, so yeah. It was unusual.
Yeah, it's kind of just weird how they ended their season, because their last game of the regular season was a 7-4 loss to Edgewood. You've got to, I mean, they hadn't given up 7 goals in a game all year. Their second game of the season, they gave up 5 to Notre Dame, but we can get more on that when we talk D1. But I mean, West, I mean, you have to go back like 9 games total to find 7 goals that Wausau West gave up. And then, they get 7 by Edgewood, and then, 7 by Chippewa Falls is kind of weird.
Then Chippewa Falls can squeak out 2, which is just enough against Hudson to win the sectional championship. All right, guys. You guys ready to move on to talk about the girls?
Yeah, Trasher wants to.
All right, let's talk about girls. The Metro Lynx and the Rock County Fury and the Fox City Stars and the Hudson Raiders. So you're looking at basically the 2 teams in the north and the 2 teams in the south playing against each other. Fox City Stars has been in and out of our top 6, if I remember correctly. The Metro Lynx has been in there. Those 2 teams have been in there, but Hudson Girl and the Fury, I don't think have been in there all year. But yet here it is, state tournament, and here they are.
Fox Cities was down 5 or 6 for pretty much all of the year. Fox Cities and Hudson is a repeat of last year's championship game that went 2 overtimes. So that'll be fun to watch.
And that's a semifinal game.
Yep, and the Lynx and Rock County is a conference game, so they've already played twice, and I'm sure the Lynx are itching to get another shot at Olivia Cronin.
Those 2 teams split during the season. The last time the Fury beat them up on their own place, so they took turns beating each other on the other's ice. But these these two teams are very, very familiar with each other. They see each other twice a season, and now a third time to decide it.
Well, the first game will be. Pretty sure this is right. The Metro Lynx and Rock County. This will be the first trip for the Metro Lynx. Mike McCursey's done a great job with his team. They finished the year 23-3. They were kind of battling with Cap City, I think, for jockeying for position to see who was going to be the best Madison area team. Metro Lynx had a really nice season. Rock County Fury finished 18-8 during the year. They won 4 in a row at the end. They had a couple of losses prior to that, yeah. But this will be, I think, a really good game. And I think what it is going to boil down to is who can stop the other team's top guns. Rock County Fury have the Hanson sisters. MJ, you're familiar with these young ladies, Annika Einbeck, Alyssa Knopf, Haley Knopf, number 3, 4, 5 on your scorecard, number 1, 2, and 3 in your heart. They have combined for between 65 and 68% of the goals and points for that team. They are the heartbeat of that Rock County Fury squad. On the other side of the coin, Metro Lynx with Sydney Raths, 32 goals, 20 assists. She's the big goal scorer on that side, but she's not the only one. I mean, they have Rachel Merwal, Kea Bice, Hannah Colpine. They have some good players, and I think this one, goaltenders are both good. Metro Lynx has been splitting Cam McCursey and Addie Armstrong, and of course we talked about Olivia Cronin for Rock County. They're, let's flip a coin. They're all very good goalies. Defense is kind of a coin flip as well. I think this one boils down to which team can shut down the other team's big guns. And like I said in my preview, and that's basically what it boils down to. I think whoever can shut down the other team's top forwards is going to win this game.
And I would agree with you on this, Michael. That's about how it's going to end up being. That was one of the things, as we were talking about the Cap City Cougars in the sectional final. Talking to some of the people who know Cap City, they said that's the problem they've had all year. They just haven't scored much. And when they got to the sectional final with a chance to, go to state, they couldn't do it again. So, if the Metro Lynx want to play some defense, they can play some defense. Go ahead, Del.
But the thing is that first period, I did not realize that Cap City had as many shots on goal as they did. I talked to Jeff between periods, and he said, "Yeah, we put 14 shots on goal," and it just did not seem like they had that many shots on goal as you went. They had the shots, they had the opportunities. They put one shot on that the goalie for the Lynx never saw it, and it hit her right in the face mask. And I go, the opportunities were there. The final score is 3-0. The last goal on that's a empty net goal, and one was a power play goal, and the first goal was one that I think if you ask Holman, she'll tell you she should have been able to stop that one. Grace Bonnell took the shot from inside the blue line, managed to get through a crowd, and it slipped underneath Holman in net to give them the 1-0 lead. I go, that game wasn't decided until that empty netter was in. But there at the third period, I'd say halfway through it, you could see the exhaustion setting in on the Cap City Cougars.
Oh, we've talked about it all year. I mean, yeah, like MJ said, they having trouble putting the puck in the net, and that's kind of been the whole thing for the girls this season is putting pucks in the net. Out of our 12 players of the week, 7 of them on the girls' side have been goalies because they got either 2 or 3 shutouts that week. Because the goal scorers on the girls' side just aren't out there this year.
Well, I think if you look at even at the sectional semifinal games, I think you had 3 1-0 shutouts on the girls' side. to make it to the sectional finals. And that yeah, you hoping everybody's playing their best hockey at this point of the season. But I think that goes to your point that you and MJ are making. There wasn't that prolific scorer out there this year for the girls.
Or was it the fact that the defenses and the goalies were just that good? I mean, it could be a combination of both,
Well,
you know?
I don't think so
I'll tell you-
because I think shots per game are right around where they've always been. Just looking at what I've looked at, shots per game are right around where they've always been. They're just not going in the net.
Watching Rock County play USM in that game, it was all Cronin. It was all Cronin by far. USM was the deeper team, but it seemed that whenever USM was set up to score, Cronin had the answer, and that was what made the difference.
Well, I think a big part of this too is, they only scored one goal, but watch out down in Madison. Einbeck, Knopf, the Hansen sisters are going to be tough, and if they're rumbling and ready to go, I think definitely going to be a handful for the Metro Lynx. But then on the other hand too, if they don't stop Raths, I mean, we could have a 6-5 game here. Hard to say. It could be 1-0. It could be 6-5. State tournament, you just never know, MJ.
Well, the other thing that you need to remember is when it comes to speed, you're going to be hard tasked to keep up with Metrolink speed. They have speed and they have a little more depth on there than what you realize. They rotate those players in very quickly, and they're constantly on the attack. I got to see them against the ECA Stars. It was the first time I saw them this year, and from what I saw then to the sectional final, it was really two different teams on the ice when the way they were.
Well, those games will be on Thursday.
And for
what do you want
people-
to call that, the evening
That is the evening session.
session?
And for people who care about such things, Hudson is just Hudson, not a co-op.
That's true.
There are very few of those left.
And they take pride in that, I think along with Northam Pines, I believe as well, right?
Well, I mean, yes, those are the only two single school teams in the state, Hudson and Northland Pines. But like Medford and Rib Lake, that's what you'd call a proper co-op and not a mega co-op. Like Rib Lake doesn't have enough students to field a hockey team. Viroqua Westby Youth Initiative, proper co-op. So yeah, I mean, if you look at it, co-ops that don't make up more than one boys team, you've got 5 other ones: Medford, Rib Lake, Viroqua, and Beaver Dam. So those 5 teams, Hudson, Northland Pines, and the 3 I just listed, are basically single team co-ops.
Two things before we move on out of the girls. You were talking about USM against Rock County, MJ.
Yes.
USM averaged less than 2 goals per game, 1.96 goals per game this year. So it's not, they didn't have a prolific scoring team either, going against Rock County. But now, since we're talking about high-powered offenses, Junior, you pointed out that Fox City Stars offense. I believe last week you talked about their offense, and they were probably about the highest scoring offense on the girls this season.
Yeah, for my money, they're the best offensive team in the state on the girls' side. They have the least fall off. I ran some numbers, of what they look like against everybody and what they look like against the other top teams in the state. And when it comes to goals per game, they have the least fall off when it comes to playing against those really good teams. They average in their games against, I counted the Eau Claire Area Stars, the Madison Metro Lynx, the Central Wisconsin Storm, Cap City Cougars, St. Croix Valley Fusion, Fox City Stars, and Rock County. In their game against those teams, they averaged 3.43 goals per game. Second on that list against those teams was the Storm at 3 goals per game. Third, Metro Lynx at 2.63 goals per game. So the Fox Cities are almost a full goal better than any of those other teams when playing against the top competition. And you saw that in their sectional final against the Storm. They lit them up. It's just on the flip side, Fox Cities also had the second highest goals against per game in those games. So they'll give them up. They're an offensive team, but they'll give them up.
That just seems funny. You're talking about, they took it to the Storm. I mean, could you guys see that coming?
I mean, I've seen the Storm play 5 times this year. Twice against Eau Claire area, once against Fox Cities, once against the Metro Lynx, and once against Onalaska. The Metro Lynx beat the Storm in the game I watched. They tied Eau Claire area the first time I watched them. This game against Fox Cities was the first time I actually felt that the other team on the ice was better than the Storm, and like obviously better just watching the game. Like the Metro Lynx beat the Storm, but they didn't really feel like the better team to me. They just got a couple good breaks, and it worked out in their favor. They didn't feel like lesser than the Storm, but it felt like an evenly matched game. When I watched the Stars and the Storm, the Stars looked like just a better hockey team.
And the Central Wisconsin Storm has owned their section since they were formed. In fact, this is the first year that they're not going to the state tournament, but as all of the smaller schools have folded or merged and become co-ops, and the number of teams in their original section has dwindled, the other teams have moved in. Like last year, the Bay Area team was in the same section as the Storm, and this year the Fox City Stars are in the same section because you have to keep the number of teams in each section balanced. So, the Storm had a stranglehold on that section for a long time, but now they have to share it with 2 other mega co-ops. Well, actually 3 if you want to what's happened with the Wisconsin Valley Union taking over the rest of the Wisconsin Valley Conference, and soon to be the Great Northern Edge, because from what I understand, it doesn't sound like Northland Pines is going to have enough players to field their own team next year, and they may have to merge in with the other ones.
Yeah, I don't think Medford will either. So I mean, Northland Pines and Medford could both be merging with somebody next year, which is 2 more teams out of Section 2. So someone else is going to have to move over. I mean that could be, geez.
Could be from the east, could be from the west.
It could be.
It
could be Chippewa Falls, Menominee. Who else is close? Eau Claire area, yeah. Those are probably the 2 closest.
Guys, ready to move on to the boys D1?
Sure.
We didn't really talk about the Hudson and Fox Cities game, or did we?
We
Not so
talked about
much.
the teams, not so much the game.
Yeah, well,
Did you want to make a prediction? Go ahead.
let's just talk a little bit. Raw numbers, the Metro Lynx and the Fox City Stars were pretty even during the season on goals scored. If you believe what the WIA website says, it's 131 for Fox Cities, 138 for the Metro Lynx. So they can both score goals. Fox Cities against the Hudson Raiders. Hudson only scored 73 goals during the year. So they're going to be hard-pressed to score. But I think they play some pretty good defense. Elena Kunshir has been pretty good in goalie. The last probably half a dozen games or so, she's been outstanding. She's had a nice year. She's got a .921 save percentage and a .213 goals against, which is a little bit high, but I think Hudson plays against Minnesota teams, and there's that Minnesota bias, I guess, that plays in, but that should be a good game. I think Fox Cities, if they play their game, definitely will have a little bit of an edge against Hudson, but I would not bet the farm on this one. I think Hudson is going to be kind of a surprise team. They're 13-12-1 on the year. Probably not it's like a Superior coming in when they played a few years back, and I think they won the state title and they ended up with like a 14 and 13 record or something like that, just barely 500, but they won the state tournament. So Hudson could do, be the same thing, but I think Fox Cities definitely wants to repeat what they did last year, and that's win a state championship.
But Trasher, as you were saying, you can't count Hudson out. I mean, how many people have counted them out against the Fusion, turned around and counted them out against the ECA Stars, and they ended up winning both of those games and coming in here. They took Fox City Stars to a double overtime at state last year. They're coming in with the idea they have unfinished business down here, but I expect it to be a close game, and I honestly think this could be a pick 'em.
And don't forget, nothing away from Jeff Fox and his staff, but Hudson, both their teams have elite, played at the highest level coaching staffs. The assistant coach, Karen By Dietz, on their team, I mean, she's in the Hockey Hall of Fame with those U.S. Olympic teams, and when she's sitting on your bench and she tells you to do something, you say yes, ma'am, and you do it. There's no arguing with that. I was sitting by the Hudson bench in their sectional final against Eau Claire area, and they're excellent coaching staff. They had a little group huddle after the teams left at the end of the first and second periods, discussing what changes they were going to make going into the next period right there on the bench before they even went back and do what coaches do between periods, which is yell at the team. I assume that's always what it was when I was playing. You can't discount that. On the boys' side, we've talked about Davis Drawisky has been an assistant at Hudson the last few years, and now Karen By Dietz an assistant on the girls' side. Plus head coach Matt, I can't pronounce his last name. They have an elite coaching staff. Jeff Fox has done a really good job in Fox Cities, but I mean, there's just something about having that person who's played at the top level sitting on your bench that fires the team up.
Well, yeah, I mean, all Jeff Fox has as an assistant coach is Chris McGurk, for crying out loud.
He's just a ref. He's just a ref. He's not an Olympian.
Chris, we love you. You're a second favorite referee. You're one of our favorite hockey coaches, and people were just giving you crap.
I think that whole thing from me was just a big old lead-in for Bergler to take a dump on Chris.
And he did.
Let's move along then, shall we?
Boys Division 1. My, oh my. Notre Dame. They're going to be the favorite in this whole thing, of course, but University Schools, you're defending state champion, and they're back. You're also looking at Verona taking on Chippewa Falls. Chippewa Falls hasn't been there since 1999. 21 years.
Yeah, and I missed apparently the headline of the decade, according to Junior.
Party like it's 1999.
Yeah, I completely missed that. I thought I had some good parallelism, but apparently I was like one topic short. But
yes.
Chippewa Falls, though, I mean, they looked really good. They got the Isaacs. They got Isaac Fournette, Isaac Lindstrom, who are two very good scorers, 53 and 51 points, respectively. They got 4 Bows on the team. Sawyer Bow, Trevor Bow, Cole Bow, and Jack Bow, actually 5, and Drake Bow. I don't know if they're cousins, brothers, or what, but there's some pretty good kids on the team. I think it was Cole Bow that actually scored the game winner in the game against Hudson. So, I mean, don't count this team out, because if you would have looked at the game that they played against Hudson, you would have said, well, Hudson is Hudson. They're going to win this game. Chip Falls took it to them. So definitely don't count them out down there in Madtown. They got a nice team. Scott Parker is a good coach, and
he's been up there for a long time.
Yep, he said he was the guy that that headed the team in '99, so he's been there
Yes,
for
he was.
probably 25 years, and a good guy, a good coach, and I think he's got a pretty good team this year. Bridger Fixmer in net, I think, is the real deal. He's got some really good numbers, 944 and a 159. And he's going to be, I mean, there's just so many good players at this tournament. You just, you look at them and you go, yeah, this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good. And you say, holy shit, there's really not any bad players, like at net or the top forwards and defensemen in this tournament. So, I mean, there could be surprises or, maybe the favorites will win. We don't know. Just looking forward to next week for sure.
Well, I think this is gonna be a low-scoring tournament at the Division I level. You look at our award nominees, our finalists for the Davis Drewiski Award. 3 out of the 5 are in this. You have Jacob Conrad, a defenseman from Notre Dame. You have Nathan Jurens, a defenseman from Verona, and Alex Thundercloud from University School. And 3 out of the 4 goalies in this Division I bracket are our Kirk Dovenspek finalists: Bo Buckley from Notre Dame, Bridger Fixmer from Chippewa Falls, and Caden Grant from Verona. So I think goals are going to be hard to come by on this in this Division I.
There's you're talking about Chippewa Falls there. There's an interesting parallel from their regular season. They had a stretch January 14th, 16th, and 21st. They lost 1-0 to Eau Claire North, 3-0 to Hudson, and 4-1 to Wausau West. And those are the 3 teams that they had to beat to go to state. And yeah, they did. That game against Eau Claire North, they lost 3-1. They outshot North 26-24 in their rematch in the playoffs. They beat them, or they beat them 3-1 in the playoffs, whatever.
Yeah.
But then in the Wausau West beat them 4-1 and outshot them by a lot. They narrowed that gap. Just Wausau West outshot them by 8 shots, but Chippewa Falls beat them 8-1 in that playoff game. Hudson outshot Chippewa Falls twice by a wide margin in both of their Big Rivers Conference matchups. In the sectional final, it was 25-23 in shots. Chippewa Falls won 2-1. So something, I mean, every team should get better over the course of a season, but Chippewa Falls seems to have gotten a lot better to close those gaps, because Wausau West and Hudson, those regular season losses really outshot them, which really shows puck possession as much as we can see it from a score sheet, and they've just sucked that gap down. They really improved at a level that I don't think we see out of most teams going to state.
Well, yeah, in their 3 playoff games, Chippewa Falls, even they won all 3 playoff games, but ended up getting outshot in total shots for the 3 games. But not all. I mean, some of that may have been by design, because they only put 2 shots on goal in the 3rd period against Wausau West. They started that period with a 7-0 lead, running time, and they were content to dump the puck, to ice the puck. Just they weren't even they didn't care to score anymore. They just whatever just takes time off the clock. Let's keep the clock moving and get this game over with and go on to the next one. The only time they got concerned at all about scoring was Wausau West took a cheap penalty towards the end of the game, and that kind of riled up the Cardinals. So they went down and scored a goal right away, just to say, "Ha ha!" That's what you do when somebody does something dumb like that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, they got outshot in that 3rd period by Wausau West because they didn't care. I mean, the shots were from the outside. They were, Fixmer had control of things. We're just, let's say, get this game over with and move on to the next one.
Well, and one other thing I noticed, this bracket was the last one to come out. The boys D2 and the girls bracket came out within like 15 minutes of each other, and this one was like an hour later. So Bergler and I were arguing about, why did this one take so long? At first, we thought there was a conspiracy theory that if Notre Dame was going to be 1, USM had to be 4, so we couldn't have a private school final. And then when we saw the bracket actually come out with Chippewa Falls at 2 and Verona at 3, we're like, well, that's why it took them forever. Because Verona was a number 1 seed, Chippewa Falls was a 3 seed, and now Verona is the 2 seed in the tournament, and Chippewa Falls is the 2 seed in the tournament, and Verona is the 3. There's no way that they didn't argue about that.
Well, I actually got an email from Scott Parker, Chippewa Falls coach, about 11:30, asking me to send him the either stack or HSHO rankings, and I said, well, I was at work, so I didn't see it right away, but I responded a little bit later. I said, I don't think that there has been an update, and his response after that was like, never mind. So he got his number 2 ranking, and he was probably good with it. But a couple of things here that I can mention is that Verona's won a state title in 2014. USM has won 3 of them in 2006, 2010, and 2019, and Notre Dame has won in 2012. So, I mean, there's 3 teams here that have been there, won it. I mean, is that a huge advantage in your guys' mind? What do you think?
Were any of the current players on one of those winning teams?
USM.
Well, USM,
yes.
because they were there last year,
Okay.
but
All right.
like Notre Dame's win was far enough ago. None of those players are still there, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah, do any of the Verona and Notre Dame players remember the whole USA thing when Verona stunned Notre Dame back in 2006 or whatever it was, spoiled their perfect season. No, I don't think there's any holdover from that. That was long enough ago.
I mean, right up until about Christmas, I think there was a strong feeling that Notre Dame was going to go undefeated. They started their season 7-0 against Superior, 5-2 against West, 9-1 against Edgewood, 8-1 against Waukesha, 7-0 against Pines, 1-0 against Eau Claire North, 2-0 against Hunson, 5-0 against Spash, 5-1 against Nina Hortonville Menasha. That's a brutal schedule to start your season, and they won every one of them. And they didn't allow more than 2 goals in any of them. And then
They do have a game against Verona in there as
Yep.
well.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Saturday, December 28th, Verona beat them 3-1. And thus far, that is the only blip on their schedule. They also have a tie late in the season with Detroit Catholic Central. I looked it up at the time. They were ranked 3rd in the combined rankings in Michigan. Because Michigan's got 3 divisions, the combined ranking of all 3 had them at 3rd overall. So that's the only blip on their schedule, was that loss to Verona on Saturday, December 28th. And they avenged that. Just a couple weeks later, they beat Verona 3-2 in Wausau. So, I mean, Notre Dame has just been a juggernaut this season.
And they had, according to this, they had the strongest opponent strength of schedule. So they played the toughest schedule and had the best record. On top of that,
I would buy that. Even in their own conference. I mean, out of conference. Look at their schedule. My God.
well, their own conference wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
having
yeah.
the toughest strength of schedule when their conference is De Pere, Bayport, Ashwaubenon, and Sheboygan, that
Yeah.
says something, because, like I said earlier with Rice Lake, their conference is Eau Claire Memorial, Hudson, Eau Claire North, and Chippewa Falls. I mean, they have a built-in strength of schedule. For Notre Dame to have it with, no offense to those teams, a relatively weak conference is pretty impressive. It's like those years in the Valley in the early part of the 2000s when West, Spash, and Rapids were all really good. Notre Dame doesn't have that in their conference, so to play that tough a schedule out of conference is a credit to what Coach McCracken is trying to do.
Junior, you got it right there. What about Verona? Well, what did Verona's out of conference schedule look like?
I don't have it up at the moment, but they played Notre Dame twice. They played Wausau West.
Yeah, Verona had a very good.
They played Arrowhead.
They played.
They had the 17th strongest schedule. So I mean, when you
That's
there are some-
right at 17 puts them right at where Rice Lake, Menominee, and River Falls were. basically a Big Rivers schedule, which is
And
good. Anything in the top 20 is a tough schedule.
and you know what? I think the only reason it may have been there, that I don't know if you want to call it low or whatever, was just because they had to play a conference schedule. The Big Eight was not the strongest conference in the state this year at all. I mean, Verona was the best team in the Big Eight, hands down.
And they did well, and they did.
They went
well,
undefeated.
and they got they played a very strong non-conference schedule. They won the showdown in Titletown, which has some of the top teams in the state. Going to Green Bay for that.
Yeah, I mean, out of conference, they went and played Edgewood. They played University School. They played, obviously, showdown in Titletown. They played Eau Claire Memorial, Wausau West, and Notre Dame. Beat all three. Played Notre Dame again later. Arrowhead towards the end of the season. They had a game against Spash at the end of the season. So, yeah, they've... Spash wasn't great this year, but you don't know that year to year. You just know they're typically a very good team. So, Verona played a very tough... All three of these... all four of these teams played very tough schedules this year. And you had to because they all had... Well, 3 of the 4 had very strong opponents in the sectional final, and 1 had a very strong goalie opponent in the sectional final. Kirk Davis over there in Beaver Dam trying to spoil Notre Dame's party. I was following that game on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, come on, score a goal. I so wanted Beaver Dam to score a goal and get that into overtime, and then I saw the second Notre Dame goal, and I was so disappointed.
Guys, I think what it boils down to is realistically, 3 of these teams have a great chance of winning. Chip Falls could be the dark horse here, but I don't think there's going to be any games where it's just totally a blowout, right? So
well, I mean, we could still see a blowout.
Clarify that. You say 3 of these teams have a good chance of winning. Which 3 are those? And which one doesn't? You say Chippewa Falls doesn't?
No. I mean, they have.
I saw them spank Wausau West. You saw them beat Hudson. Would you say Wausau West or Hudson wouldn't have a chance to win coming in here?
No.
But you just said Chippewa Falls doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm okay, so, all right, Burglar. What are you drinking there?
I'm not tonight. That's the problem.
That is the problem. Damn it.
I'm coherent.
Yeah, okay, that is the problem. Okay,
I'm actually listening to what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. So let's look at it this way. Verona, USM, Notre Dame have all been near the top in the top 6 of our polls all through the year. Chip Falls has kind of been, I think they might have cracked the top 6 once. If you look at it that way, there's your 3 teams: Verona, USM, Notre Dame. Chip Falls, maybe a little bit of a dark horse. I mean, not to say that they can't win it, but if you have to go with who's probably going to win it, it's going to be one of these 3, and Chip Falls is going to be the team that could win it. And that's my opinion. I mean, I'm not trying to say that Chip Falls is a bad team. I saw them play. They beat Hudson. They killed Wausau West. What was it, 8-1?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, they definitely have a good team. They're very fast. They have some high talent players on offense. They have some good defensive players. Fixmer is definitely the real deal in net. But I think of these 4 teams, Chip Falls is probably the one that's going to have to fight a little harder to win the state title.
But
That's
out of these 4 teams,
second.
Out of these 4 teams coming in here, who's coming in with the least to lose, really? Did nobody expected to be there?
Chippewa Falls.
Right. So that should make them lose.
They're coming in with no pressure on them. Verona's got pressure on them. They're having to come in expecting to knock off Chippewa Falls, whereas Chippewa Falls is saying, we've got this. We beat this team. We beat this team. We there's nobody here that we should be scared of.
Right, and
Chippewa Falls came out of the section of death. 4 of last year's state tournament teams were in Section 1. Chippewa Falls is the team that came out of Section 1, not one of those 4 teams that was in the tournament last year.
it's worth noting
The
on
Chi-Pi Cards.
the composite ranking I compiled for the WHCA before the sectional seedings, Chippewa Falls is rated ahead of University School. And based on what's happened since then, Chippewa Falls might only be behind Notre Dame. Based on what the rankings are. I mean, they would have to rerun all the computer rankings, and we're not doing that because no. But I mean, they would be, Notre Dame would still be number 1, but Chippewa Falls could be right up there.
And, you know, that's what's going to make this whole tournament a lot of fun, because I think in this Division 1, all 4 teams have a very good chance. Chippewa Falls maybe has a little bit less of an edge, but hey, come on,
Oh.
they've been there 21 years.
Scott Parker, I hope you're not listening to this, because if you are, it's MJ and Trasher that are doubting you.
He
Well,
will
Bill
be
and
listening
Bill
to
and
this, and I'm
Bill
sure
and
I'll
Bill
get
and
an
I are right
earful.
We're on your
Yeah.
side. We're with you.
Oh.
Well, to be fair, I was going to automatically cheer for Chippewa Falls because they're red, black, and white, and everybody knows that's the proper color for a hockey team.
Red, black, and
Well, then that means you're cheering for Metro Lynx then.
Sure. Well, no, I'm cheering for Hudson.
I don't know. I guess what it boils down to is we have 12 really good teams down here. And, I mean, we can just throw out ideas and whatever about who's going to win or who's the favorite or who's the underdog. But, you know, no matter what it boils down to is just let's have some good hockey and let's have fun and let the chips kind of fall as they may. So not to definitely put down anybody because they're all really good teams. They got to state tournament. That's an accomplishment in itself. And, you know, we're just trying to sit here and kind of do the odds on the teams and doing the best that we can.
Now
And
we're setting odds.
And I'd like to...
Well, no, not odds, but just don't, you know, I mean, if we pick one team over another, it's not the end of the world.
If we're-
We don't know everything. It's just our opinion.
All right, if we're
So
setting
remember-
odds, I've got Notre Dame minus 2.5 and Chippewa Falls minus 0.5.
So remember that, Chippewa Falls. You should be happy just to be there. There are no losers. It's a privilege just to be nominated.
Well, that's something I like to do every year. I want to go through our awards finalists that are still active in the state tournament.
Okay.
So for our Pavelski Award, Brady Snedden and Brady Welsh, a couple of Bradys for Northland Pines and Fond du Lac, are still active. Burglar mentioned some of them earlier. Alex Thundercloud, Jacob Conrad, and Nathan Jurens, University School Notre Dame Academy in Verona, for the Druiski Award are still active. And for the Dobbins-Beck, Bo Buckley at Notre Dame, Bridger Fixmer at Chippewa Falls, and Caden Grant at Verona are still active. So at least 2 players from each of the awards is still active. And I did a little comparison because I can separate out who voted for where between like the coaches from D1, how they voted, and the coaches for D2, how they voted. You wouldn't believe it, but the same 5 finalists came out of both lists for all 3 awards.
Wow.
The coaches didn't seem to have a bias towards their own division. The coaches just all kind of agreed that those are our 5 finalists across the board. So that was pretty impressive. On the girls' side, let me get their list up. Come on, website. On the girls' side, none of our Jesse Vetter finalists are still up. All of our goalies lost. Molly Engstrom Award, all of them lost too. And for our Janelle Sergi Award, Sydney Raths and Maddie Jablonski from the Fox City Stars and the Madison Metro Lynx are still active. Obviously, those are the two highest scoring teams in the state, and those are the two highest scoring players and the two highest scoring teams in the state. So, obviously, in our offensively challenged year, they're definitely going to make the state tournament.
Okay.
I like
Anything
our
else?
awards. I like our awards. That's a good thing we started doing.
And
Me
where will
too.
that be this year?
That will be at the Alliant Energy Center Expo Hall on Friday at 4:30. 4?
Somewhere on the second floor.
Yes. There'll be signs.
4:30. There will be signs. It'll be on the second floor. All of the finalists are encouraged to attend. Any fans that want to
Yeah.
also you get to witness MJ being his MCist in person.
Goodness. You know what we need? No, we don't. Okay.
So that'll be
All right.
somewhere after the
Are we gonna-
after the Division I boys semifinals on Friday and before the boys banquet at the exhibition hall. So if you're in the area, just stop by.
Are we gonna live stream that anywhere?
We're going to
Are we gonna
record
put
it.
that up on Facebook?
We're going to record it, and then we will upload it to YouTube later, unless the Alliant can guarantee us our internet connection for the actual thing. Because we'll have it in our suite, but that's over in the other building. So,
Right.
Yeah, we don't know what we'll have for internet there.
Okay. All right, guys. Anything else? Question one. Okay, now that we've got this podcast stuff finishing up, when will our next one be at state? Will it be on Thursday? Will it be Wednesday night, or what are we looking at?
Well, we have nothing to talk about on Wednesday night. We have to, well, we're going to have to wait until Friday to laugh at Trasher, but we'll do one Thursday night.
We laugh at Trasher. It don't matter.
yeah, we'll do one Thursday night. We'll do one sometime
The guy that wears his hat
Friday.
backwards.
Yeah.
Sometime Friday, and then next Monday will be the final one for the season.
That sounds good. That sounds good. What's the matter, Michael? You're grabbing your throat. Oh. You can subscribe to this.
Yeah, we try to have a good time here, right? I mean, we're never perfect. We're kind of like the Stephen A. Smiths of prep hockey.
Oh,
and
no.
Oh,
No, yeah, we are.
We're-
yeah, no, we are.
We're not Stephen A. Smith
know-
or Skip Bayless.
No, we're the Skip Baylesses of Wisconsin prep hockey at times. I mean, we love what we have in the state. Wisconsin hockey is awesome, but sometimes we say it like it is, and sometimes you don't like what we say, and just, I guess it is what it is, right?
You know, the steely-eared listener will recognize that I did set odds on the D1 tournament about 5 minutes ago. So, get your bets in.
Right.
Give me 100 on Chippewa Falls.
All right, I'm gonna put my money down.
Take us home, MJ.
All right, you can subscribe to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, or wherever else podcasts are found. You can also watch us record the show live on YouTube. If you did that tonight, you're probably wondering what on God's green earth are we talking about. We have no clue. All right, guys. Anything else? That
I'll
would be
see
it,
you
no?
Wednesday.
Good night, John boy.
For all the boys, I'm Mike Hammett. We'll see you at the state tournament. Come by and see us. Suite 506, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Suite 506. Come see us on Thursday. You've been listening to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.
Okay.
Heidi, Heidi.